Throughout the centuries, human societies have strived to understand the nature of emotions, the intricacies of the mind, and the subtle energies that seem to govern our health and well-being. Philosophers have pondered the roots of emotional turmoil. Religious traditions have mapped pathways to spiritual equanimity, and modern psychology has analyzed cognitive processes to better explain why we feel the way we do. Across civilizations, there has been a continuous quest to discover practical methods that allow individuals to remain balanced, resilient, and composed in the face of life's inevitable challenges. In current times, scientific research has contributed significantly to our understanding of emotions, offering empirical tools and data to consolidate insights once regarded as esoteric. The phrase, "control your emotions and balance your energies," thus becomes not only an age-old ideal, but also a scientifically grounded approach to holistic health. Although the concept itself is multifaceted, it revolves around a few core ideas: understanding how emotions arise, learning techniques to regulate those emotions, and recognizing the vital interplay between body, mind, and a more subtle energetic dimension. Many contemporary scholars, scientists, and practitioners converge on the premise that when we nurture our emotional well-being, we simultaneously promote physical, mental, and even social health. Emotional control, in this context, should not be understood as outright suppression or denial of feelings. Rather, it signifies the cultivation of a clear awareness that allows us to respond thoughtfully, rather than merely react impulsively. Balancing energies, in turn, refers to the art of ensuring a harmonious alignment between our inner forces, be they described through ancient philosophical constructs or through modern scientific frameworks such as neurophysiology. Historical and philosophical foundations. Historical accounts reveal that the pursuit of emotional mastery has deep roots in various philosophical schools. One compelling lineage is found in ancient Greek thought, particularly among the Stoics. In works like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and Enchiridion by Epictetus, we learn that while we cannot control the external events of our lives, we can, and should, control our internal responses. The Stoics believed that virtue and tranquility are achieved through recognizing the boundaries of our own agency. That is, we must discern what truly belongs to us, our character, our judgments, our choices, and what does not, the fortune or misfortune bestowed by circumstance. Their reflection is deeply tied to emotional regulation. If we cannot control outside variables, at least we can manage the mental and emotional states that such variables evoke within us. Meanwhile, the Epicureans approached emotional calm through the concept of ataraxia, a tranquil state untroubled by fear or distress. Although they emphasized pleasure and the avoidance of pain, their definition of pleasure was far from hedonistic indulgence. It was more about embracing a moderate and simple lifestyle that distances us from tumultuous desires. In both Stoicism and Epicureanism, the key is learning when and how to modulate emotional impulses, so that we neither drown in them nor become numb to legitimate feelings. These ideas would be inherited and reinterpreted throughout the centuries by Christian thinkers, such as Thomas Aquinas, who further infused them with theological considerations of virtue and moral order. Turning to the East, we encounter systems like Buddhism, with its foundational texts that outline the Four Noble Truths and the path to cessation of suffering. By recognizing the impermanence of all phenomena, practitioners learn that clinging to transient emotional states only perpetuates suffering. Meditation, especially mindfulness-based practices such as vipassana and samatha, trains one to observe the constant flux of thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. Over centuries, the Buddhist approach to emotional regulation has inspired countless practitioners and has later found resonance in modern therapeutic contexts, as exemplified by the current wave of mindfulness programs worldwide. In yoga, expounded in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, emotional disturbances are seen as fluctuations of the mind, chitta vritti, that cloud one's true nature. Through disciplines like asana, physical postures, pranayama, breathing exercises, and contemplative techniques, individuals can stabilize these internal ripples and foster a state of equilibrium. Significantly, yogic philosophy also addresses the concept of energy within the human system, traditionally referred to as prana. By balancing prana through physical and mental practices, one supposedly harmonizes the mind, emotions, and body. This notion of energy intersects deeply with many other ancient traditions. including traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, in which life force, or Kuai, permeates all living things. Finally, Taoism, articulated in texts like the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi, underscores harmony and balance achieved through natural spontaneity, Wu Wei. The concept of yin-yang indicates that all forces in the cosmos have complementary opposites, and imbalance can lead to both physical and psychological discord. This notion, too, integrates the broader idea of balancing energies, reminding us that excessive force or reckless emotional expression can disrupt the flow of life's inherent equilibrium. Psychological perspectives on emotional control. Fast forward to the modern era, and we see an elaborate landscape of psychological theories and therapies that seek to understand human emotions in greater depth. Sigmund Freud, the founding father of psychoanalysis, introduced the idea of libido as a form of psychic energy, primarily linked to sexual and survival drives. His focus, however, leaned toward the unconscious conflicts that underlie overt behavior, and the manner in which these suppressed forces manifest themselves in dreams, slips of the tongue, or neuroses. To Freud, controlling emotions meant understanding and making conscious these hidden dynamics, thus preventing them from erupting in harmful ways. Carl Gustav Jung, once a close associate of Freud, diverged substantially in his views on psychic energy and the structure of the psyche. Jung's concept of individuation involves harmonizing conflicting elements within the personality, conscious and unconscious, anima and animus, persona and shadow, so that a more balanced sense of self can emerge. From a Jungian standpoint, balancing energies can be interpreted metaphorically as the integration of archetypal forces and the alignment of diverse psychological aspects. Through methods such as active imagination and dream analysis, individuals gain insight into the deeper layers of their psyche, learning to navigate emotional turbulence more skillfully. In more contemporary times, Daniel Goleman propelled emotional regulation to the forefront of mainstream discourse with his landmark work on emotional intelligence, EI. Goleman's research distilled EI into a set of competencies: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Rather than viewing emotions as irrational phenomena to be avoided, emotional intelligence promotes the idea that emotions, when acknowledged and guided properly, serve as powerful aids in decision-making, relationship building, and overall mental health. Goleman's popularization has had broad impacts, influencing corporate leadership training, educational reforms, and personal development programs around the world. Among academic researchers, James Gross and colleagues at Stanford University have rigorously studied how individuals regulate emotions in real time. They have pinpointed different strategies, such as cognitive reappraisal, suppression, and attention deployment, and investigated the physiological consequences of each. For instance, reappraisal, which involves reframing a problematic situation in a more positive or neutral light, tends to have long-term benefits for emotional well-being. Conversely, habitual suppression can generate unwanted stress responses, indicating that not all forms of control are equally beneficial. Gross's contributions highlight the scientific underpinnings of emotional control, aligning with the older wisdom that how we choose to interpret events is crucial in determining our emotional states. Neuroscientific underpinnings. Alongside psychological frameworks, neuroscience has delved into the mechanisms that underlie emotion and self-regulation, thus lending empirical weight to millennia-old ideas. Scientists like Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have investigated how sustained meditation practice influences neural structures and functions. Through functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and electroencephalogram, EEG studies, Davidson and others have shown that brain areas such as the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the amygdala are intimately linked to emotional responses. When an individual practices mindfulness or other forms of contemplative training, measurable shifts in activity and connectivity can occur in these regions. Notably, the amygdala, often associated with the fight-or-flight response, can become less reactive over time, indicating that consistent meditative practice promotes enhanced emotional stability. This research not only corroborates insights from Buddhism and yoga about the trainability of the mind, but also establishes a verifiable biological basis for the concept of balancing energies. The synergy of modern imaging techniques with traditional contemplative wisdom demonstrates that bodily processes, brain function, and subjective experience are deeply interwoven. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, lies at the heart of these discoveries. Psychologists and neuroscientists now widely accept that one's emotional style, although influenced by genetics and early life experiences, is not rigidly fixed. Rather, through appropriate interventions, whether in therapy or through meditation, it is possible to cultivate new patterns of response to emotional triggers. This opens a realm of possibilities that speak directly to ancient philosophies. We can practice the art of tranquility and gradually reshape our habitual reactions to stress, fear, or anger. Holistic and integrative approaches. While modern science focuses on empirical validation, traditional medicine systems, such as traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, and Ayurveda, embrace broader concepts of bodily and emotional energy flow. In TCM, the notion of QE is central, referring to a life force that courses through invisible pathways known as meridians. Stress, trauma, or other disruptions can obstruct this flow, culminating in emotional imbalance or physical ailments. Therapies like acupuncture, acupressure, and practices like Tai Chi or Qigong aim to restore and sustain a harmonious circulation of qi. Similarly, Ayurveda, rooted in ancient Indian civilization, describes three fundamental biological energies, or doshas: vata, pitta, and kapha. Each person is thought to have a unique constitution, determined by the interplay of these doshas. When one or more doshas become imbalanced, emotional and physical symptoms may arise. Ayurvedic healing suggests lifestyle adjustments, herbs, dietary guidelines, massages, like abhyanga, and yoga routines to bring these energies back into equilibrium. While some critics question the scientific validity of such frameworks, integrative medicine has increasingly recognized that these traditional practices offer value when applied responsibly and in conjunction with allopathic methods. Therapeutic methods for emotional regulation. Contemporary psychotherapy has developed various modalities that align implicitly or explicitly with the historical quest to manage emotions and cultivate inner balance.
One notable example is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which teaches clients how to identify maladaptive thought patterns, cognitive distortions, and to replace them with more constructive interpretations. By challenging and modifying dysfunctional beliefs, individuals can reduce negative emotional states and reactivity. This method resonates with the Stoic imperative to examine and transform our judgments about external events.
Dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, introduced by psychologist Marcia Linehan, builds on CBT principles, but adds techniques derived from mindfulness, emotional regulation strategies, and skills for navigating interpersonal conflict. Originally designed for individuals with borderline personality disorder, DBT has proven effective for anyone who struggles with intense emotional fluctuations. It focuses on four main skill areas: mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotional regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. By learning these techniques, individuals strengthen their capacity to remain centered, even in the midst of heightened emotional states. Additionally, the role of biofeedback and neurofeedback in modern clinical contexts highlights how physiological indicators, like heart rate variability, skin conductance, or brainwave patterns, provide immediate feedback to guide self-regulation. With biofeedback training, people learn how to shift their breathing, posture, or mental focus to produce calmer states. This objective, data-driven approach might have seemed alien to ancient philosophies, yet it embodies the same fundamental idea. By becoming aware of the body's signals and responses, we can consciously steer ourselves toward equilibrium. Practical exercises for day-to-day balance. Translating these principles into everyday life does not necessarily require complex interventions or years of specialized training, though dedication and consistency are key. A few foundational practices stand out. Mindful breathing. Among the simplest yet most potent techniques for managing emotions is paying attention to one's breathing patterns. Whether drawn from yoga's pranayama or modern mindfulness programs, slow, deliberate breathing can soothe the sympathetic nervous system and foster a sense of calm. Engaging the diaphragm fully, with emphasis on lengthening the exhalation, naturally signals the body to reduce the stress response. Meditation and mindfulness. Regular meditation practice, whether it is focused attention on a chosen anchor, like the breath, or open awareness of all sensations, helps develop the metacognitive skill of observing one's thoughts and feelings without immediately identifying with them. This non-reactive stance allows one to recognize emotional surges early and choose a more considered response, reflecting what both Stoic and Buddhist traditions emphasize. Physical disciplines that combine movement and awareness. Systems like yoga, tai chi, and qigong integrate gentle or moderate physical exertion with breath control and a meditative focus. They are believed to promote an even flow of vital energy, prana or ki, while simultaneously strengthening muscle tone, flexibility, and circulation. This dual benefit of physical and mental well-being helps practitioners feel more centered and less prone to emotional volatility. Cognitive restructuring. In line with CBT and Stoic philosophy, taking a pause to reframe a challenging situation can significantly diffuse negative emotions. For example, if one faces a disappointing event, like a professional setback, it can be helpful to consciously explore alternative perspectives. Is there a lesson to learn? Can it be a catalyst for personal growth? This process guards against spirals of anxiety, anger, or self-deprecation. Expressive practices. Engaging in forms of expression such as journaling, art, or talk therapy can also serve as valuable outlets for pent-up emotions. Repression can lead to psychological distress, so it is vital to express and process strong feelings in a healthy environment. In a safe container, even intense emotions become more manageable, which helps maintain overall balance. The interplay of emotion and energy. In bridging these ancient and modern approaches, we encounter a consistent theme. Emotions are not simply psychological phenomena in isolation, but are intimately connected to physiological states and subtle energies. The notion of energy might be interpreted differently depending on cultural background or scientific orientation. While one tradition may speak of ki or prana, another may refer to nervous system arousal and neurochemical changes. Regardless of the terminology, there is an emerging consensus that bodily processes, hormonal fluctuations, neural pathways, heart rate variability, are inextricably linked to how we experience and interpret our emotional world. Recent research into the gut-brain axis and the vagus nerve suggests that our gastrointestinal system and its microbial environment, as well as the vagus nerve's modulation of parasympathetic activities, play substantial roles in shaping moods and stress responses. Although not typically couched in the language of energies, these physiological networks echo the holistic perspective of TCM and Ayurveda, which hold that bodily balance is foundational to emotional stability. Thus, balancing energies can also be viewed through a biomedical lens, ensuring that the body's various systems, from immune function to neuronal firing, are attuned and functioning cohesively. Ethical and personal development dimensions. The subject of emotion control and energy balance does not exist in a moral vacuum. It often intersects with notions of ethics, virtue, and personal growth. Classical philosophers like Aristotle underscored that virtues are habits that emerge when individuals learn to find an appropriate mean between excess and deficiency. For instance, courage is the midpoint between recklessness and cowardice, while temperance mediates between indulgence and total abstention. Emotions play a vital role in these virtues. If one cannot regulate anger, pride, or fear, it becomes challenging to consistently act in a virtuous manner. In a similar vein, many spiritual traditions identify the significance of compassion, patience, humility, and wisdom as moral pillars that hinge upon steady emotional management. Within Buddhism, the cultivation of metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion, is seen as deeply intertwined with self-awareness. As the mind becomes calmer and more stable through meditation, negative emotions like hatred or envy are less likely to spiral out of control. Modern psychology aligns with this moral dimension in the sense that stable emotions can foster pro-social behaviors. Empathy and altruism flourish more readily when one is not preoccupied by inner turmoil. Even in professional settings, leaders who demonstrate high emotional intelligence are often more ethical and fair-minded, as they are better equipped to understand and manage the emotional climate of their teams. Therefore, controlling emotions and balancing energies is not solely for personal gain. it can yield wider societal benefits, encouraging a collective culture of respect and empathy. Potential misunderstandings and pitfalls. It is crucial, however, to distinguish between genuine regulation of emotions and their unhealthy suppression. Certain forms of control can distort or deny authentic experiences, leading to an accumulation of stress that eventually finds damaging outlets. In psychoanalytic theory, repression can contribute to neuroses or psychosomatic symptoms, while from a purely behavioral standpoint, suppressed emotions sometimes surface as passive-aggressive behavior, substance abuse, or chronic anxiety. Thus, achieving balance is inherently about discernment, knowing when and how to channel an emotion productively, rather than simply forcing it aside. Likewise, the idea of balancing energies can be co-opted in ways that veer into pseudoscience or exploitation. When claims lack scientific basis or misappropriate cultural traditions for commercial gain, skepticism is warranted. A responsible approach honors both scientific inquiry and cultural authenticity, ensuring that practices are transparent, evidence-based when possible, and ethically disseminated. Contemporary applications and future directions. Today, the integration of emotional regulation and energy balancing techniques into mainstream healthcare and education is more evident than ever. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, pioneered by Jon Kabat-Zinn, has been a forerunner in bridging Eastern contemplative practices with Western medicine. Numerous controlled studies have shown MBSR's efficacy in reducing symptoms of chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. Parallel programs, such as mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, extend these benefits to relapse prevention in depression, further illustrating how meditative approaches can be woven into clinical treatments without losing scientific rigor. In educational settings, some schools have introduced lessons on emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and mindfulness exercises to help students manage stress. This proactive stance recognizes that children and adolescents armed with self-regulation skills are more likely to excel academically, socially, and emotionally. Encouraging them to be mindful of their thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations builds resilience that might protect them from some of the mental health issues that often escalate in adolescence or early adulthood. Workplace wellness programs are another domain where emotional regulation and energetic balance are receiving considerable attention. Corporations recognize that stress and emotional discord lead to employee burnout, absenteeism, and lower productivity. Consequently, initiatives involving yoga sessions, meditation breaks, resilience workshops, and biofeedback training have become more common. Although driven partly by economic interests, reducing healthcare costs and turnover, these programs reflect growing awareness that mental and emotional well-being directly influence organizational culture and success. Looking ahead, the combined insights of psychology, neuroscience, and ancient wisdom traditions suggest that the quest for emotional mastery and balanced energies will remain a central theme in our evolving society. Technological advances in neuroimaging, artificial intelligence-driven mental health apps, and wearable biosensors may soon provide increasingly sophisticated feedback loops to help individuals manage stress in real time. While such tools are valuable, the essence of the practice remains rooted in human consciousness, our capacity for self-awareness, empathy, self-reflection, and transformative insight. Synthesizing insights in conclusion. In weaving together the historical, philosophical, scientific, and practical dimensions of controlling emotions and balancing energies, a unifying principle emerges. Conscious awareness is key. Whether one draws on Stoic wisdom of distinguishing between what is within our power and what is not, or on Buddhist teachings of mindful observation, the goal is to be present enough to recognize emotional states as they arise, thereby making deliberate choices rather than succumbing to automatic reactions. Modern research in psychology and neuroscience validates these millennia-old principles, showing that the brain itself is malleable, capable of forming new neural pathways conducive to better emotional regulation when properly trained. Simultaneously, the body and mind function as an integrated system. Balancing one's energies, be it through yogic, tai chi, or qigong practices, or through simpler exercises and breath control, has tangible effects on emotional health. The synergy of all these approaches reveals that we are not simply rational machines or purely spiritual beings. Rather, We exist at the intersection of biology, culture, consciousness, and environment. While much progress has been made, the journey of mastering the mind remains both deeply personal and collectively significant. In practical terms, achieving this balance is a daily endeavor. It requires cultivating habits of mindfulness, seeking healthy forms of expression, engaging in regular physical activity, and consistently reflecting on one's emotional patterns. Moreover, it invites an ethical dimension, reminding us that emotional stability does not merely benefit the individual, but can foster healthier interpersonal relationships and a more harmonious societal fabric. In recognizing our shared humanity, we learn that controlling emotions and balancing energies is not about denying the richness of our emotional life. Rather, it involves channeling that richness toward constructive ends. The nuances of control in this realm should always be appreciated. Genuine emotional regulation is about forging a skillful relationship with our inner world, neither being enslaved to passions nor stifling them entirely. Similarly, balancing energies entails learning to move in accord with the deeper rhythms of life, whether described as yin-yang, prana, ki, or biomedical homeostasis. The cumulative result of these endeavors is a state often characterized by clarity, equanimity, and resilience, qualities that allow individuals to navigate the unpredictable terrain of existence with greater poise and purpose. Thus, our contemporary moment offers a unique vantage point. We stand on the shoulders of ancient sages and modern researchers alike. We have at our disposal an array of practical tools and theoretical frameworks to address the complexities of emotional life. By merging introspective practices from meditation lineages with empirically tested therapeutic methods, we cultivate a comprehensive approach that honors the full spectrum of human experience. As we continue to evolve, individually and collectively, the pursuit of controlling emotions and balancing energies will no doubt keep adapting to new contexts, integrating fresh insights from cutting-edge research, and expanding upon time-honored traditions of self-mastery. Ultimately, this convergence underscores a timeless truth. If we are to face life's challenges with grace, creativity, and compassion, we must first learn to harness the forces within ourselves. Emotional control and energetic balance lie at the heart of human flourishing, offering a path toward a more harmonious existence, one that celebrates both the vibrancy of our emotional states and the tranquility that emerges when those states are consciously guided. By committing to practices that nurture this equilibrium, we not only improve our personal well-being, but also contribute to a broader culture of understanding and connectedness. Our internal landscapes, after all, shape how we perceive and engage with the world. From the perspective of Western psychology, we can use cognitive techniques to reframe challenges, harness positive affect, and mitigate destructive impulses. From the viewpoint of Eastern contemplative traditions, we can practice mindfulness and compassion, drawing on well-tested methods that refine our awareness and deepen our empathy. From traditional medical systems, we can adopt balancing measures that consider our diet, daily routines, and environment, aligning our physiology with our emotional needs. And from modern neuroscientific studies, we acquire a blueprint that shows us which neural pathways to reinforce, indicating that sustained practice can indeed mold our brains toward greater resilience and well-being. In conclusion, learning to control our emotions and balance our energies is a multifaceted endeavor that merges self-knowledge, discipline, and openness to continuous growth. It is not a destination we arrive at once and for all, but rather a dynamic process that unfolds throughout our lives. In the midst of society's rapid changes, this skill set remains both relevant and transformative. Whether we derive inspiration from the Stoic meditations of Marcus Aurelius or the cutting-edge experiments of laboratory neuroscientists, the message is consistent. As we refine our emotional intelligence, we unlock a potential for inner harmony that transcends everyday turmoil. By engaging wholeheartedly with these time-honored and scientifically supported practices, we step closer to a state of equilibrium, forging a life where emotions serve as guides rather than tyrants, and where the flow of our intrinsic energies is harnessed in service of personal and collective flourishing.